Oh, now we're live.
What's up?
What's up?
Hey. Guess we'll give him 2 minutes to get on board here.
Catch
iPad. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our show again. This will be a good time to. I was going to share it on my phone, but I left my phone downstairs. I'm not much of a real estate agent anymore.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
How about them cats?
how about those cats?
C-A-T-S, cats.
What? This was a shock. I actually think they may actually do something this year.
Man.
Don't jinx us.
If you asked me 6 weeks ago, I'd have been like, what the hell are y'all talking about?
Well, you don't know anything about basketball.
I don't know anything about basketball, and I don't follow any sports, so that does count. But
I feel good about it. I think we're going to
think so.
beat Kansas State. And I think
Kansas, I think they're going to be our hardest.
I don't think so, because if they can't score more than 50 points against
Yeah, we should be all right.
Baltimore County, then I think we should be okay.
Yeah,
Better known as
I'm more-
UMBC
I'm more worried about, I'm
You
probably
beat
more
by
worried
count,
about
that's
Nevada.
or Loyola.
I think Gonzaga's got some shit going on.
Well, to get to the Final Four out of our bracket, I think Nevada's
yeah,
our
that's
biggest threat.
Yeah, if they can come back from 22 down, then
But we're playing like a team.
yeah, we are.
A team.
Maybe
That's
Jared Vanderbilt will come back. That would help us even more.
Yeah.
I don't even know any of the team players' names. It's so bad. I used to love Kentucky basketball, but not nearly as much as Geoff, who's literally watched every single episode.
Episode?
To show you how much I know
He
about
doesn't know
sports.
anything about basketball.
But it is about team players, team stuff, and
Sounds
It's-
similar to real estate.
sounds similar to real
It's very
estate.
similar to real estate, and that's. I was thinking about that last night. About how the teams are coming together, how they're playing well, and teams always peak to get to the Final Four, and so it kind of made me think about how to be the realtor and how to beat other realtors out and all that stuff. And I think one of the biggest, I want to talk about one thing that realtors sometimes, if you're going to fail, this is one thing you fail at, and that's being a team player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, when you're doing a real estate transaction, you got, there's probably on average of 7, 8, 10 people involved in that transaction. And you've got to have the ability to work with all those people in that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think if you've got, it's definitely 7 or 8 people that you got to deal with, and then you have to deal with the people that don't need to be involved in the deal
Yes.
as well. Like,
Unfortunately.
the dad that bought a house in 1988 that is certain that he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
And then being able to mitigate those things. And I think, and just to say real quickly, somebody mentioned about Jason being on his phone. He actually answers our questions for us, so he's looking up questions, so he's not actually just on his phone ignoring us, by the way. He is a team player.
Thank you, Eli.
He is a team player, and this is him being part of the team, and he would not wear the Hawaiian shirt today because
It's snowing.
It's
it's
snowing.
snowing, and if it wasn't
That's a good
snowing, it
reason.
was so freaking close.
Yeah.
It's so close.
He's
Like-
a Q&A guy.
Actually, you
Q&A.
know what? We should make you wear that every week. You should just wear it every single week. But no, anyway, back to the subject. Back to the subject about being team players. Think about who you got to work with. You've got to work with the lender. You've got to work with, obviously,
Title.
the title people,
Inspectors.
Appraisers.
the buyers,
The sellers.
the seller's agents, who else? We got your transaction coordinators, people in your own real estate group, in your own real estate teams. I don't. The definition of an entrepreneur is somebody that's solving problems. That's why I always say real estate agents are entrepreneurs, because we solve problems, and a lot of times the problems are people, and not necessarily the person's the problem, but their understanding, their mindset may be the problem, and we have to fix those kind of things.
Yeah, if you go into a transaction, I'm not going to call any names, but doing this for 15 years, you're going to run into an agent that's difficult to work with on the other side.
Yeah.
And then you run into those people that are fantastic. And, if you go into the thing and you're over demanding and you're indifferent and you're rude and you don't respond to them, it's not going to go well. It's not going to be a good, smooth transaction.
Right.
But when you work with other agents that are responsive and they're answering your calls, and everybody, our job is to go in and make this a transaction as smooth as possible for our sellers or buyers, whichever side you're representing. And there's too many people out there that, unfortunately, sometimes they will develop an ego. I've been doing this for 30 years and I know the best practices, or I know the best way. And it makes it such a difficult situation. And the goal is it's not to get in a pissing contest with each other as realtors.
Right.
Our goal is to make it a smooth, seamless transaction for the person buying the house and for the person selling the house, because they're the most important people at the end of the day. It's not us. It's those people. We're just here to make sure that transaction goes smoothly.
So what about, like, explain also, you shared this with me in mentoring, how that it can come back to bite you or help you in down the road if you're in multiple offers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Share that.
absolutely. I mean, if you're in a business and, you go out and you've had a working relationship with an agent before, and the transaction went fantastic and everything, and then, this year you come up with a multiple offer transaction or a multiple offer situation. A lot of times, the agent was like, hey, I know this person gets the job done on their side. I may have had a great experience with this one. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you from my experience with this agent, this may be a better deal to work with.
Right.
And it's happened. I mean, you'll win a lot of multiple offer situations by being a good agent and being someone that is a team player with the other side.
Yeah,
Good.
and I think when Jeff's saying good agent, he's saying not just an agent that sells a bunch of business, or not just an agent that is a super nice guy, but it's just somebody that really understands that the goal is win-win. The goal is to try to get the best possible deal for your buyer while giving the most possible money for a seller, and everybody comes out ahead in it. And and there are different. You meet buyers or sellers that kind of feel like they have to have a win, or somebody has to, for them to win, somebody
Yes.
has to lose. And what a good agent does is kind of mitigate that and make it a win-win for everybody. And I
Right.
think that's the best definition of a good agent, is trying to get that win-win. What you say, Jonathan, is something?
Yeah, I was actually in a unique situation recently where I did an auction with a Keller Williams agent that called me to do the auction, and a ERA agent brought the buyer. So there was actually 3 different realtors from 3 different brokerages in the same transaction, and both of them were great to work with, and it was seamless from the beginning to the end. And so that kind of goes to show you, most of the time there's 2 agents involved, but on this one there was 3, and it was as smooth as could be.
And there's going to be stuff that happens in transactions too that you're going to get frustrated with. And another thing about being a good agent too, you never, we may be pulling our hair out behind the scenes, I guess, so to speak, but you never put that stress or anything on your buyer or seller. I mean,
I just never
Unless you-
got that.
yeah,
And
if
I
you have
dealt
to-
with an agent like that one time 5 years ago or something like that. And this girl, it was like one bad thing would happen and she would immediately go and call her client and tell her this happened. I was like, whoa, we can mitigate this, fix the problem, tell them it happened, this is how we fixed it, not a problem anymore.
Right.
Again, it's about being a problem solver, and it's like, you recognize that. And obviously in today's business, we've got a lot of people coming into the business. I was talking to Bonnie today that literally, this is on a national scale, there are 1.6 million real estate agents, there's only 1.1 million available listings.
Wow.
Sounds about right.
That's insane.
So talking about a team player, guys, give feedback on devil's advocate, the other side of that. What happens when you're not a team player? And what are some pitfalls of not being a team player? Elaborate on that for those that may be wondering. Talking about basketball, and you
Yeah.
lose when you don't play. So in real estate,
you definitely lose when you don't play. And you may stumble to the finish line, but it's not going to be. And honestly, when there's animosity and you have a hard time with that other agent, you try your best to keep that, away from your client. But sometimes it's impossible to do. And then you get to a closing and you're having to close in separate rooms, and there's animosity, and it should never get to that point, because every problem has a solution.
right?
Yeah.
So therefore there's no problem, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So every problem has a solution, and you just have to have a level head. I mean, I had an agent, she called me over a closing date that I had no control over at all. And just things happen, and it had to be extended a day. Well, she called me, instead of just calling us, she called me and started cussing me, like just cussing me out as soon as I answered the phone. So I said, hey, when you can call me and you can have an adult conversation, I was like, I'll talk to you. I was like, have a good day. And I hung up on her.
I wonder if she's watching.
Oh, well, you know who you are. But about an hour later, she got a level head. She called me back, and it was nothing on her part that she could do. And the buyers and sellers were fine. They didn't even know the situation was going on, but she called and wreaking havoc for no reason.
So you all would agree that it causes a lot of stress when we're not playing ball with everybody.
Oh, of course, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think being able to work well with your counterpart, whoever you're dealing with on the other side, is crucial. I mean, and especially like today when we have multiple offer situations and where 5 offers may come in at exactly the same price, exactly the same lender, and then it comes down to basically the seller picking who they want to pick, and then at that point they'll lean on the real estate agent and say, hey, how have you done with these deals? And it can affect your business.
That happened to me this week.
Oh, really?
Honestly, I was in a multiple offer situation on one of my listings. I went to my seller. The price was exactly the same. The inspection
really? Wow.
terms were exactly the same. Everything was the same. And, I told him, I called both agents, got as much information as I could. I was like, so tell me about your buyer. And got information about one buyer, got information about the other buyer. Went back, and the buyer decided they chose the person that was buying their first time home.
Yeah.
Because they
love the house.
They love the house, and they wanted to, okay, we want these people to enjoy the house. And the other person was an investor, and they chose the person buying the house over the investor. And that's, that's the way it works sometimes.
Yeah.
How would you guys, what would be good advice for someone that's new and some people that's watching that are new that I know is watching? What are some ways we could be a better team player? Give your opinion, each of you. How could I become a better team player in the process?
As far as a realtor or a buyer?
As a realtor, there's some realtors watching, I know, and then there are some people that are watching right now that are buyers. Just overall in general, how do we be a better team player in general?
I think you definitely have to listen to everybody, because you really can't be a team player without, knowing what everybody needs, as far as it's your seller, if it's your buyer, or if it's the other realtor involved. So listening is certainly a key. And then, me, I'm very good at, somebody can call me and cuss me out, or they can tell me I'm ugly or fat or whatever, and it really doesn't hurt my feelings. It rolls right off my chest, and I roll back on, and or my belly, or I may eat it or whatever. But you can't let stuff like that affect you. You just got to roll on. The real estate business is a roller coaster ride. One day you're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in the world.
It's not even one day.
I love it,
Right.
and then 10
it's
minutes
out,
later you're
yeah.
like, oh my gosh. I need, I wish I was doing something else, because it is just it's a roller coaster ride, and you just got to buckle up and be ready. Be ready for the ride.
I mean, the key is communication.
Yeah.
It's communication, and honestly, you have to have a very level head in this business.
Yeah.
If you don't have a level head and able to solve the problem, then it's going to be a disaster. So, when something comes at you and it's a difficult situation, I've got another example of what happened to me this week in real estate. So, I've got 2 investors that are buying a property. We're supposed to close on the 30th of this month. Well, one of the investors kind of disappeared on us, decided he had to back out, wasn't going to buy anymore. So I called the other guy. I had waited. I gathered all of my information before I called the other agent, because I didn't want to call her and give her partial information, because I was going to upset her. So I called my other investor. I was like, hey, what are you going to be able to do this on your own? What are we going to do? He's like, hey, I think I got somebody else that wants to do this with me. Let me get a hold of him. I was like, hey, let's set up a meeting. Let's talk to him, see if he wants to jump on board. The guy wanted to jump on board. Once I had all their information, we had to switch lenders. We had to do everything right in the middle of this. So I called his new lender. I was like, when can we close on this? He goes, I can do it in 3 weeks. So then I pick up the phone and I was like, hey, I'm in this situation. I just want to let you know, one of the buyers, they're not going to be able to do this, but my buyer's got another buyer, another partner that's willing to come in on this. I already spoke with their lender. He said he can't close it by the 30th, but we can get it done by April 10th. Are your sellers willing to do this and work with us on this? And I informed them. I was like, there's no guarantee they're going to accept this, because we're going in, we're having to change all this. So at this point, there's a possibility you're going to lose your earnest money, because he's just backing out for no reason. They've done the inspections. They've made the repairs that you asked for. So I'm on your side, but I'm going to warn you that this may not end well. Right. But, I called the agent and explained to her the situation and said, hey, it's another 10 days past what we were supposed to do. Even if they put it back on the market, they're going to be 30 days out closing with somebody else anyway. Exactly. So if they extend it for 10 days, can we make this work? And we're closing on the 10th.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's a great point of what I was going to make was not just communications, but don't assume anything. You cannot have the assumption that the seller is going to think this, and I'm representing the seller. Nothing annoys me more than when I call a buyer or a listing agent and tell them that this is what's going to happen, and they're like, "Well, my seller's not going to like that." They're like, "Dude, how do you know that?" Like, why would you say that? Like, you've already brought on.
She's already put the negativity, or
it's
he
like,
or she's already put the negativity into
It's
it.
like, listen, this is, and I think that's an excellent way you handle that, and that's the way all the really great agents do is that they get a hold of the situation, get all the components together,
Come up with a solution.
and then
present what the new solution
And then
could be.
if it doesn't work out, you did everything you could there. But if he went straight to that listing agent and just was like, "Hey, my dude's out.
I'm going to try to work
I'm
out
gonna
something
try to work
else.
something out."
Right.
You know, the first thing that would have been on his computer was a release.
Right.
And just real quick before your next question, please, if you guys could comment and share. Jason's answering questions. I would love for you to share share this with your if you're watching it now. Please share it. To try to help us get in touch with more people out there on that fancy internet. But,
So recap. So to be a better team player, listening, communicating, and don't assume things.
And problem solving.
Problem solve.
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as the agent, we are the central hub of the whole transaction.
Exactly.
So you're navigating everything. So keep the level head and do it. We didn't introduce our guest.
I just thought that's exact same thing.
Thanks, guys.
Jonathan Knoll, resident auctioneer here. If you haven't tell by his exuberant voice, being able to
Projectile.
be able to projectile his voice so well. Jason Carpenter, Eli Haddad, and Geoff Brewer with the Brewer team. Auctioneers. How's the auction business going?
It's good. We just closed out a online equipment auction last night. I was supposed to be helping load bulldozers and dump trucks and tractors and trailers today, but the snow kind of threw a wrench in it. So we're moving that back until tomorrow, our pickup day, from 8 to 5 p.m. And real estate auctions, they're going well.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned a moment ago, I did a real estate transaction, just closed it a week ago with a Keller Williams agent and an ERA Select agent. So 3 agents involved, and it was great.
So what are you finding, what are the best situations that you're finding to do auctions?
Well, I'm doing 2 types of auctions, which a lot of people are aware of the different types, but there's an absolute auction, and there is a auction subject to seller confirmation, which in turn would actually be a reserve auction. A lot of the reserve auctions right now I'm doing that are online only. So, for example, the one I just did recently with those 2 other agents, that was a reserve auction. It was subject to seller confirmation. And the seller was probably honestly thinking, she might get between 110, 115,000.
Yeah.
And her biggest scare was she knew that the house was old, and she didn't really have the money to make any repairs. And we kind of coached her along. Was like, well, if you list it, then let's say if you get the 115, somebody could come back in here and want $5,000 worth of repairs or $5,000 off the price. So she chose to go the auction method of marketing. And ended up bringing $122,400 or something like that, including the buyer's premium. And the thing that she liked the most was, first of all, she was already out of town, so we had 2 open houses. It was vacant, so she didn't have to worry about coordinating going in and out for the showings. And also, it was as is, where is, so there was no contingency, there was no warranties. It wasn't contingent upon financing, was not contingent upon appraisal, inspection, any of that type of stuff. So the people that actually bought it did an inspection prior to the auction, even though they didn't know if they were going to get it. They were pre-approved, but they were aware that even if their financing fell through, they would lose their down payment. And one thing I like a lot about the auction versus the traditional method is, when somebody puts in an offer and they say, I'm going to give you $500 earnest money, or I'm going to give you $1,000, or whatever it may be, when an auction they have to put down 10%. So these people, the price was $122,400, so they put down like $12,000 as earnest money, and it was non-refundable. So knock on wood, or Eli's leg, I've never had an auction fall through once they put that money down, because a lot of people can live with that 500 to lose or 1,000, but if you lose 12 grand, it hurts them the worst. So.
Well, you said there was 3 agents involved in that. So if whether it's an agent from our office or an agent from outside, how does that work? How does let's say I got a property, I've done an auction with you on one of my properties. Just explain to them, I'm a seller. I'm a selling agent. I've got a guy that is kind of same situation, maybe needs to sell it quickly, or doesn't want to do any repairs. How do I get paid as the selling agent to refer business to you?
So if an agent brings me a client, we would do it as a partnership. We would do it 50% on At auction, we do not charge a seller commission. We charge a buyer's premium, which is 10%. And people sometimes say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you all make 10% on auctions." But there is a lot of overhead expense that goes into that. You're pumping out advertising in a 30-day period, and you're doing mass advertising. You're not just putting it online and go to Zillow, Realtor.com, and all that type of stuff. You're doing newspaper ads, Facebook ads. You're doing email blasts. You're doing a ton of different things that you wouldn't do at a normal listing. So we do that, and we're offered 10% or 10% commission. And the person that brings me the buyer, we would split it 5 and 5. Now we would offer 2% to a cooperating real estate agent who brings the buyer. So it would either be 5 and 5.
Yeah.
5% to the person who brings the auction, 5% to the auctioneer, or if there's another realtor involved who brings the buyer that actually has to sign the buyer up 24 hours prior to the auction, then it would be 4, 4, and 2.
Yeah.
So when you say you split it 50%, now are you taking all the advertising cost off the top, and then it's 50% after the advertising cost
Correct.
comes out?
Yeah, so I would pay, and most of the time it depends on the agent situation, but it doesn't bother me at all to front all the advertising and then take it off the top at the very end, or sometimes me and the agent would just split it right down the middle.
Yeah.
Now, if it's an absolute auction, we as the auction company or the realtor, we pay for that advertising and we take that totally off, the top of the commission. If it's a reserve auction, meaning that we're not positive that the property is going to sell, then the seller pays that advertising. We ask for the money up front because we don't want to spend $5,000 to advertise it, and the seller say, "Oh, we didn't get enough money," and then we're $5,000 in the hole. So the seller needs to have some skin in the game.
So we got some questions.
Sure.
How does an online auction work, like with you?
Okay, so an online auction, the bidding platform we use is called HighBid, and we put it on LBAR, we put it on Realtor.com, Zillow, all that type of stuff, and we most of the time advertise the auction. I've done them as soon as 10 days from the date we sign the contract, but the average, most of the time want to advertise it for about 30 days, and we run the auctions for about 7 days. So the bidding may open on a Monday at 12 noon, and it always starts out low because that's how you want to catch the crowd. When somebody sees a house that's worth $100,000, the bid's $5,000, it kind of catches their attention, and that's why you run it for 7 days. And at the very end, that's when all the activity starts. So I've had some to jump up $100,000 the last hour of the auction because that's where all the action's happening, and I like to call them computer cowboys. They get behind that computer and that mouse, and they get to clicking it, and sometimes they just can't quit. And the fact that they got to put that 10% down, I haven't had anybody click that couldn't perform.
So another question is, why if somebody's watching right now and they say, "Gosh, I want to go auction versus traditional," why, and pros cons of either or?
I'll say the con first because I'm a real estate agent and an auctioneer. But if I had to pick, I would rather do more auctions. But I would say a con of doing an auction is when you're advertising the property for 30 days. If somebody wants to buy it that same day, the seller does have that opportunity. But in a lot of buyers' minds, that may not even come to their mind. They may say, "Well, I'm gonna wait 30 days until the auction happens, and I'm gonna buy it then." So I would say, if you list it traditionally and it's that hot of a property, you could sell it that day and close on it 2 days later. Now, I would say the pro of the auction is there's no contingency, so it's sold as is, where is. There's not contingent on appraisal, inspection, whether somebody's dog dies and they can't make it to the closing or whatever. They've got to show up, they've got to buy it. I would also say in auctions you're going north always, so you're always going up. In a traditional sale, a lot of times you list the price. Now, sometimes you'll get multiple offers, and it might bring $10,000 above list price, but more than majority of the time, you're selling it for at list price or below.
Yeah.
At an auction, you're always going up. So I may say, somebody give $200,000, need to get down $200,000, $25,000, $50,000, $75,000, $200,000. So you're always going up. You're never back. We don't do British auctions where we say, "Well, somebody give me 200. How about 190? How about 180? How about 150? Do you want to be 5,000?" You're always going north. So that's always, that's a plus of an auction. And it creates excitement, and it forces buyers to be decisive. So I don't know about any other realtors watching it, but there's always a few of those buyers out there that, "I don't know about this one," or "I want to see 39 more before I buy one." And if this one's still around in 6 months, I think I may pull the trigger. But right now, I'm just not sure. Well, with an auction, they see that date, and if it's on May 5th, 2018, guess what? On May 5th, 2018,
The house
if
gonna
you're
sell.
not going to buy it, somebody
Somebody
else
else
is.
Yeah.
Speaking of that excitement, I've got a garage full of stuff right now because I went to a daggone auction over at UK,
Oh yeah.
and I'm just like, $1. I mean, I got all kinds of stuff. I bought like 25 projectors.
Really?
I sold them all already.
Really?
No way.
Yeah, I paid $25 for 25 projectors and sold them for $25 a piece the next day. It was good.
So I think some people like the auctioneer, and they maybe do that again.
Let's auction something off.
Oh,
You have a gift or anything you
got
like?
something here. When I,
Yeah, actually,
This-
you know what?
this right
Let's auction
here
off something.
is an awesome mouse pad that happens to have my band on it from a show that we did in
There's no
Nashville.
autographs.
When are they going to be at
Uh,
Willie's again?
My band, the Commonwealth Band, is going to be at Willie's on the 27th of April,
27th
Friday
of
night,
April. Okay.
9:30. So it should come out. But this is one of a kind
One of a kind.
mouse pad.
No autographs, but you keep this one day.
We could probably get
and
it autographed.
It's going to be famous. And yeah, the winning bidder today can get this thing autographed. So who wants to go for $1 million? A million here, a million, $1,000 here, 2003. And 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5 here, squared, 7,000, 8, 9, 10,000, 15, 20,000, 5. And 20, 25, 50,000, 75. And now one. And $75,000 here, give 100,000, sir. And 75 bid, 75.
Hello, singer.
Well, 85 help you at all, sir. 75 bid, 85, 85. Last call, 75 85. Sold her $75,000.
Yes, sir.
This gentleman right here, $75,000. Eli.
Take a check.
Before, and you all may say, what in the world is he saying in between that? So I say dollar to buy her. So I say $25 to buy her, $30 to buy her. I say to get down, 25 to get down, 25 to get down, 5 to get down, 5 to get down, 25 to get down, 30. And then I say here, I say 25 here, 30 there. Let's see, what else do I say? Sometimes I don't even know what I say. Sometimes it just kind of pops out. But I've been selling telephone poles and in the shower for so many years.
Awesome. There's five.
So, taking to that, you're talking about the excitement. So, most of the time, I think most people have the assumption that auctions only take place when the market's bad. And you do see a lot more auctions, I think, a lot of times. But tell us why do an auction when the market, when it's a seller's market right now, and we're low on inventory. Why do an auction?
I would say because, one thing you were talking about a minute ago is the sellers, when they get 10 offers and they have to make that decision of, man, which one do I go with? Is it because I like this realtor better or is it like that? It takes the seller out of the negotiation part and it makes the buyers speak for themselves. I mean, you could get a property appraised, you can get 5 realtors to give you a CMA, but it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Right.
And so it establishes true market value. And I get so many times I go to a listing presentation or an auction listing presentation and somebody says, but if I do an absolute auction and my property is PVA at $150,000, what if it only brings $2,000? And I say there's no way in the world that's going to happen because when you hire a professional auction company, we're going to bring professional buyers. If your house is worth $150,000, I could call 3 of my investors up today and they'd stroke you a check for $100,000. Now obviously we want to get you more than that, but your house isn't going to sell for $2,000. Now I can't sit here and say, I'm going to write on a napkin that, yes, your property will not bring $100,000. That's kind of the trust that they have to instill in us. But
We did it before, actually. We were in a Palomar, man. It was hot, and the market was just heating up, and it was an elderly couple that did not want to do any open houses because the wife.
they didn't want to do any showings
They didn't want to
because
do
they couldn't get in and out of the house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So
because-
when we pitched the open house to them, they were like, you're telling me that we can, have chips and clothes all over the house all week long and we only have to clean up on the weekends? And we're like, yeah. And that was kind of the part that sold them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. We were like, we're going to do 2 open houses, and everybody that's going to buy is going to come during those 2 open houses. If they do, they do. And then we got a market value. It sold for what it comped out for.
Yeah.
So it was like,
So if you did that, let's say somebody did an absolute auction, and they owed, their payoff on their house was $225,000.
You gotta talk to the
What,
bank first.
what if it comes in and it only
Well,
brings,
that's
would you have to short sell it?
with an so for it to be an absolute auction, it would have the bank would either have to sign off that they're going to take less, or we'd have to do an auction with reserve. So if the house is worth 300,000 and they owe 225, we'd have to do an auction with reserve. Now myself, I don't really like to publish the reserve, because if we tell the public, hey, this thing needs to bring 225,
Not as many
then a
people
lot of
show
people
up.
aren't going to show up. But if you just advertise auction, and for people watching at home, so if you ever see the word auction and there's not an absolute in front of it, that means that there's an auction with a reserve. So when we just advertise real estate auction or online auction, that means it's an auction with reserve. And I always like to do it subject to seller confirmation. So if we need 225, we still may start it at 0, 5,000, 10, 15, 20, and then when we get up to the number, if they need 225 and we only get 223, a lot of times the banks or the seller may have 2,000. They can just write a check back to the bank for the difference. So
clarify that. So if it says absolute auction, there's no reserve.
correct.
And is the preconception, a lot of people have that notion that, gosh, I'm going to go to an auction, I'm going to get a great deal. Is that the majority of the time?
It depends on also what it is. As the auctioneer, anytime a buyer calls me, that's what I want to tell them is, hey, you're going to come. I want you to get this thing as cheap as possible, because I want 100 people to show up. But as the seller, our goal is obviously to get them the most money possible. But the more people that come, they're the ones that got to get caught up in the excitement. So myself, I even go to other auctions, and I even get caught up in it. And I'm a professional auctioneer. I'll go sometimes and say, I'm not spending over $100 on this chair, and I end up spending 175 because the dude was over there bidding, and I was just like, well, he's not going to beat me.
I got this really cool chair and this big old desk, and all this other stuff's still sitting in my garage if nobody needs anything.
I'm about to open up another Airbnb. So
Yeah, there you go.
Well, any more questions?
No, there's a lot of people watching. A lot of people are watching in. Before we get off the air, anybody have any questions, shoot them to me real quick while these guys are talking, and we'll be happy to answer them. We're talking about auctioneers, talking about being a team player. Any questions, hit us up right now.
So Eli doesn't know anything about basketball. Go back to the basketball thing.
I don't play any sports.
Who do you think, out of the 16 left, Jonathan, who do you think is going to be cutting the nets at the end of the year?
I think the one of the shirts you're wearing.
Think the Cats are?
I do.
I think it's going to be us and Duke in the championship game, and I hate to say that.
I'd love to play Duke in the championship, honestly. I think
Well, we were supposed to play Duke the year we got beat by Wisconsin, because we would beat Duke by 20 points.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
that was.
This year, unfortunately, they're actually clicking on all cylinders.
They are good.
Who do?
But I would
Yeah,
feel better beating them in the championship than now. Regardless, if we hung number 9, I'd be cool with it regardless.
If we
But
play
it would
Duke,
be
I would
bitter.
almost go to San Antonio just so I could trip Grayson Allen.
yeah, I think I'd go with you. I don't think he can even come close to guarding Shea though. I think if Grayson Allen tried to guard him,
No.
he'd be asleep.
We good?
Yeah, I say we go off there with him auctioneer, and everybody likes that. That was a hit today.
All right, let's
Sell this off.
let's sell this iPad.
And 1 million, how do we buy a million one? How do we buy a million one, two? How do we buy a million two, million three, four? How do we buy a million four, million five, 6 here? How do we don't get to say $1 million here much, but